have taken buses and taxis colectivos to the village of Itzampa since 1998 to visit my friend Dolores, the artisana this film is about. I know this dirt road well, sometimes accompanied with students and a colleague or alone. Itzampa is a pueblo of 5,000 people, and everyone here is involved in pottery making. The Zapotecs have lived in this fertile valley for almost 3,000 years.
Buenos días, Miguel.
Buenos días, Dolores.
Estamos aquí trabajando, mire.
Sí. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Leticia.
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 Pon aquí, mija.
Leticia. Muy bonito.
Sí, es trabajo de Leti.
Sí.
Sí. ¿De ella?
De ella.
Ah, bueno.
Sí. Se llevó un día.
We are back in Oaxaca, colonial city founded in 1529 with a current population of about 400,000 people. For me, Oaxaca is a city of people working with their hands, so much made from so little. Villagers bringing their fruits and vegetables and wares to sell on the street. So much activity, everyone working all the time. Oaxaca City in the state of Oaxaca is at 17 degrees north of the equator and is in the tropics at about the same latitude as Central Africa. Mexico City is 314 miles, 468 kilometers to the northeast. The ciudad is surrounded by mountains and 3 large valleys that spread out from the city. The altitude is 5,080 feet, or 1,550 meters. At the time of the Spanish conquest, there were at least 16 distinct ethnic and linguistic groups living in the area, and they still exist today, and all the languages are still spoken. In the 1980s, UNESCO recognized Oaxaca as a World Heritage Site.
De ti, mi bella Oaxaca. Llevándote en el corazón. ¡Epa, rey! Oh, baby, Oaxaca, Oaxaca.
We are now back in Dolores' studio, Taller, and she is preparing to build a large pot or olla. She uses 2 kinds of clay that are mined nearby. The black clay, barro negro, gets its color from decayed plant matter and carbon it contains. We call this carbonaceous clay, and when fired the carbon burns out and the color is tan. The other clay, barro blanco, has been pulverized and sifted and is called temper. It is made from ground-up fired clay pieces, like some Pueblo potters in the southwest do today. It can also be coarse clay, sand, or ground-up fired bricks. As Dolores takes clay from under the plastic, she sprinkles the white clay on the floor and starts to wedge the clays together. Wedging is a way to get the air pockets out of the clay and to get it to the consistency she wants for building. Most of the Zapotec women sit on their legs while working and always wear the traditional apron. Temper added to the clay reduces shrinkage, and it helps with the thermal shock while firing, and finally creates passageways for the water to escape during drying and the beginning of the firing. To compress the clay for the bottom of the olla, she uses a fired shallow dish form that is round on the bottom to facilitate turning. The dish is called a molde. So as she starts shaping the clay in her hands, patting it and compressing it, and then lays it in the molde, pounding the clay and adding more clay, continually turning the disc. It is very important to make the bottom floor of the pot strong before she begins to build the wall. What you are watching are repeated hand movements that she has used for over 50 years making pottery. On other pieces you will see her construct. She sometimes uses a metal turntable or volteador. to work on top of. Other times I have seen her turn a round pot upside down and then balance a flat dish on it and begin building, balancing the pot as she works. I have watched and filmed Dolores work over many years, and I never tire seeing her talent and concentration and originality. Dolores and her daughter began working at 5 this morning, and this group of pots are commissioned for a hotel in San Felipe de Agua, just 10 miles north of the city, that was the original water supply for Oaxaca. An aqueduct was built by the Spaniards sometime after this colonial city was laid out in 1529, and some of the stone arched waterway is still visible today.
Ya están hablando de mí.
¿Quién?
Esos.
¿Qué dice? ¿La Clara?
Once she is satisfied with the floor, the wall construction begins, and this is truly magical, as she first takes small amounts of clay and makes thick coils or longas that flow out of her hands as she pats them together. I don't know the origin of the word longa, but the word for pork sausages is longaniza, which would be similar in appearance. So, with just the right amount of pressure, she applies the coil and smears it as she is turning the molde, and repeats this action over and over as she goes around the pot, and the wall grows in height. It is important to build the wall straight up so as to reduce the problems of gravity that could make a wall fall down, that is, leaning out at an angle. The clay she uses is sticky and soft. She often stops and uses a piece of a gourd she has shaped with a convex edge to scrape and smooth the inside of the growing pot. This shaped gourd would be called a rib in the U.S. and made of rubber, wood, or plastic. As you watch her working, you can see one hand is always opposite the other, applying just the right amount of pressure, and the pot is constantly turning to keep it round.
Hey, Titi. Teléfonos.
11 de mayo. El 12 a las...
Le dije.
Pero le dijiste que no, pues.
Ajá. No, porque ¿dónde me voy?
¿A la esquina bonita?
Yo agarré una canica de mi casa.
¿Qué
Agarré una canica de mi casa.
Ah, bueno.
Ay,
Porque ya se va a venir.
As she begins to reach the height she wants, she will start to level the lip first with her fingertip and then with a piece of felt that we laughed about one day was from the sombrero of Alfredo. She can drape it over the lip and compress and round it and begin to define this from the pot. Now the olla is very soft and only great skill keeps it from collapsing. During the process up to this point, as little water as possible is used, just enough to keep from sticking to the pot. Too much water would weaken the clay and make it fall down. The different parts of the pot, olla, are named after our bodies: the bottom or foot, the body of the pot, the shoulder, and finally the lip. There are endless variations and proportions used all over the world that can be used to create a clay vessel, but only experience and time allow the artisania to make the parts work together to create a visually beautiful form that is pleasing to the eye. At this point in the construction process, Dolores needs to stop and let the clay stiffen for at least an hour before she can continue stretching and scraping the vessel to achieve the finished form.
Esto se queda así hasta entre de una hora, amaciza, y entonces lo puedo redondear.
Another day, otro dia, I asked Dolores to demonstrate the building of a small pot. As an artist and university professor of ceramics, my students and I worked with a variety of techniques and purchased refined clays and glazed materials and had access to all kinds of kilns, hornos, that were fired with natural gas and could obtain temperatures of 2400 degrees Fahrenheit. In contrast, a wood dung bonfire firing can only reach about 1300 degrees because so much of the heat escapes. So about 15 years ago, I wanted to learn more about indigenous ceramics, the very beginning stages of the discovery of pottery production. I wanted to turn my back for the moment on the high technical world of ceramics today and leave behind the fluorescent lights and well-equipped university studios to try and connect with the early potters, artesanos around the world. Because fired clay can last forever, we have a great resource of the history of ceramics from everywhere in the world that informs us of their daily lives and rituals. Pots and effigies were buried with the dead. Fertility figures were placed in the ground where crops were grown to aid in a successful harvest. Ceramics was central to the lives of early inhabitants. Everywhere people learned to work with clay and began to fire pieces and use them in their daily lives and in ceremonies. There are examples of early pottery made in China from 6,000 years ago that have the same form and even sometimes the same decoration, Greco stair-step design, as examples found in the American Southwest where pottery was introduced from Mexico around 700 to 900 AD. Pottery production in Mexico started many centuries ago, and at Zampa may have been making utensils and figures for the great culture of the Zapotecs at Monte Alban before the birth of Christ. The Zapotecs founded Monte Alban in 600 BC and created a city of thousands of inhabitants, building stone pyramids, temples, palaces, homes, official buildings, astronomy observatory, tombs, ball courts, large underground cisterns to collect water, and growing fruits and vegetables on hillside terraces. Their reign lasted for over 1,000 years. Dolores is using techniques she learned from her aunt when she was 14, and the method of building has changed little for hundreds of years. This particular way of working is unique to Zampa. Different techniques are used in other villages around Oaxaca City. There are 3 valleys that go out from the city, and different pueblos specialize in a variety of crafts. The women are the potters, and the men do the firing and contribute to the clay preparation. Everyone at Zampa is involved in pottery making. As the pot grows, air gets to both sides of the clay wall and begins to dry a little poco. So with great patience and a light touch, Dolores can begin to apply pressure with the gourd rib and begin to stretch the wall to start the shape she wants. Shyness. Okay.
¿Ok? ¿O quiere una flor?
Sí,
¿Una flor?
sí, muchas
Ah,
flores.
que le hagas flores en la orilla.
Can we
Sí.
put it over on the floor for you? Here, I'll make a new spot.
A ver la flor que puedas hacer más mal hecho.
Right here, good? Here's más maybe. Okay, she's coming back in a minute. Now I got everybody working for me. Jay's filming.
Es que ahorita que se orea ya le ponemos sus figuras.
Sí.
Ya está terminado.
This is Acala, the pedestrian street that connects Iglesia Santo Domingo Church to the Zocalo, the heart of the city where people meet, stroll, relax, and people watch. That's such a pretty street, I wanted to show it. Oaxaca, with its rich history and long occupation of people, is a perfect place to study ceramics and see how techniques have been handed down from generation to generation. I first met Dolores and her husband Alfredo in